Good afternoon. So good to see you, Seth. Seth Godin, who so many people know who you are because you are a thought leader, an entrepreneur, a marketing strategist. You've written more than 18 books, I think. And, everybody knows who you are. And I'm excited to have you here today. I'm building you up because I've known about you for so long. I hear you on podcasts. I heard you on Tim Ferriss's podcast. Simon, you have your own, Akimbo. But I've heard you had one before that. And you're just a man with equanimity and a lot of smarts. And you seem like a mensch and a really nice guy. And we're happy to have you here today. So I'd love to get some advice from you and ask you if you could just share a little bit about your story and how you got here.
Well, first, thanks for the kind introduction. Everybody doesn't know who I am. It doesn't even get me a decent table at Balthazar, I'll tell you that. But free advice is probably worth what it costs, but I'll do my best to chime in. Where would you like to start, Bess?
I just want to know a little bit about your background. Share a little bit about your story, your upbringing, and how did you get to where you are today?
Well, I started my first commercial venture when I was 14. When I was in college, I helped found one of the largest student-run businesses in the country. We had a birthday cake service and a travel agency and a ticket bureau and a temporary employment agency. That was fun. Then I learned a little bit at business school and got a great job. I mean, some of the luckiest breaks I got, I won the parent lottery, I won the birthday lottery, and that first job I had marketing educational computer games in Boston in 1982. My boss let me run amok and figure out how to be of service. That was where I learned that hustle probably wasn't going to help, but being of service could. And after that, I invented one of the first online computer games. And then I invented email marketing. So you have me to thank or to blame for that. And along the way, I wrote some books. And since then, I've never done a day of consulting, but I try to show up, see what's making the world tick and why it's doing that, and maybe help people process how the systems around us are changing the way we work.
When you said that you won the parent lottery, you had really great parents who believed in you. Can you talk to me a little bit about that?
Well, I miss both of them every day. I grew up in Buffalo, New York, which is probably a little small town compared to most. My mom was the first woman on the board of the local museum. My dad was the president of the local theater and the volunteer head of the United Way one year. I grew up thinking that having refugees at your house for Thanksgiving was normal. And my parents didn't really care about my grades, but they cared about whether I was kind and whether I was contributing. And I got arrested at the age of 13 on the floor of the American Stock Exchange because I visited with my dad on a trip and sort of wandered off. And the stories of being a free-range kid go on and on. I was very lucky.
You were fortunate. I think that makes such a difference in how you act, how you show up in the world. It's everything. How your parents, they show you, so you were lucky. I also consider myself lucky. Hit the lottery. My mom is still here. My dad not, but very important. Well, you talk about the death of creativity and the importance of presenting your creativity in your business. And so could you talk to us a little bit about that?
Okay, I'm not sure I ever used the phrase death of creativity, but maybe I did. I've written a lot of words on my blog.
Sorry,
No, don't worry.
I found your quote, yes.
I think that creativity does not mean being a rock star. It doesn't mean being an oil painter. Creativity, for me, is solving an interesting problem in a way that helps other people and doing it within the constraints that exist. Because if there are no constraints, then there's no need to be creative. Then you're just God and you can do anything you want. And what the industrial system has done is it has built systems that push people to be cogs in the machine. And in your industry in particular, there's a lot of fear and there's a lot of follow the leader. There are more people who work in your industry than just about any industry in the United States. And the people who show up aren't there to reinvent what it is to be a real estate broker. They're there to fit in just enough to be able to have their work pay off. And what happens is if everything is going up, you can make that work. But when the world gets chaotic, when there's ups and there's downs, when there's people coming in and coming out of the industry, you can't just do what everybody else is doing the same way everyone else is doing it, because then you're a commodity in a fixed priced industry. Why should I pick you?
Right.
So creativity comes in then, where you say, I'm not going to complain about the rules. I'm going to look at the rules and figure out how I can be of help to the people I'm here to serve. And if you can do that, the business will follow.
Right. I mean, well, that's part of what you talk about in the Purple Cow, in the sense that you need to differentiate yourself from everybody else. And in real estate, as you know, it's an emotional commodity. It's, service. It's putting your client's interest first. Although, Seth, you've probably seen that there's an image problem with the real estate agent today, right? I mean, I'm sure you don't watch those shows. Maybe you've seen them. You probably don't. You're too cerebral for that, I'm betting.
Or too busy, one or the other. Yeah.
But it's complete dreck. I mean, it's complete, just not reality, what we do. And so it paints a really bad picture of what the real estate agent and professional does. And so you do have to differentiate yourself and provide a service for people to want to work
with.
Right.
So let's break that into pieces.
Yeah.
Right? So I wrote this book a very long time ago.
Yep.
And almost every word of it is still true. I don't believe that differentiation is the goal. I believe the goal is to be remarkable. Those are different. The reason they are different is you could be different by wearing a clown suit to work, but it wouldn't help anybody. The way you become remarkable is if someone else decides to talk about you. So if the people who are listening to this are being honest, the question I would ask you is, will the last 8 people you helped find a new home talk about you to someone else? Why would they do that? The answer most of the time, if you're being honest, is no, they will not. They will talk about their house. They might even talk about how annoying the bank was. But they will not talk about what you did, because you did exactly what you were supposed to do. And so that's why, if you look, I don't know, on any social media channel, there aren't that many people bragging about their real estate broker. They're bragging about the branded t-shirt they're wearing. They're showing off their new glasses, but they're not bragging about their broker. So if you're not doing something that they will benefit by talking about, they're not going to talk about it. And I think that's the key.
Yeah, doing something like, I think that's such a great distinction, the being remarkable. We had, a client who one of our agents helped, and he stocked his refrigerator with all of his favorite things. He did all these things, and the guy called me. He couldn't stop talking about him because he said, I never had this type of service. Like, he went to the market, he filled my fridge, he, got me a yoga mat. He did all these certain things. And obviously that goes a really long way, but you're right. And I think it's hard in our world to slow down. It's like when you talk, I'm sorry, I've been reading a lot about what you say and what you've written about. Talk about the throw versus the catch, and sort of like that intentionality. Like, what are you doing? Is it excellent? Is it like something special? Are you just are you a plumber? Are you just fixing problems all day? Right.
Right. And there's nothing wrong with plumbers. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with a broker that follows the pattern. But you can't do that and also expect to get above normal response. If you do normal things, you get normal responses. So the question is, are you comfortable enough in the contribution you want to make to lean into it? So I tell the story, I think in Purple Cow, but maybe in a different book, of the real estate broker who's 1 block away. When we first came to town, he said, look, we're going to give you a 45-minute drive around this town, Hastings on Hudson, New York. And as we're driving, he's pointing to each house, not for sale, and say, oh, this house, my father sold this house. These people live over here. And he described honestly everything that he saw. He was basically the unelected mayor, still is, the unelected mayor of Hastings on Hudson. And for the next, I don't know how many years we lived in our first house, 3 years, every time we were interacting with him, he had no interest whatsoever in talking to us about moving. Zero. He was there in his role as the unofficial mayor of this town. Now, could he have expanded to 3 more towns? Of course he could have. But he didn't do that. He said, this town is my town. They're going to have meetings of volunteer groups in my office. We're going to make sure that everybody who I touch is introduced to the people they need to be. That will probably cost him a few sales a year. But what it led to, I've been here for 25 years, is he's still the unofficial mayor of our town. Because he says, real estate is what I do on the side. What I do in my heart is I take care of Hastings.
Wow.
And you could do the same thing. I've heard of a broker in New York City who only buys and sells apartments in one building, right? The mayor of the building. Or you could specialize in people from a different background, not by violating any fair housing laws, just by being the kind of person that someone's comfortable with because you're in their circle.
Right.
And so the amazing thing about being in the service business is you're not beholden to a device, to a machine, to an inventory. You get to decide what you're going to stand for.
I love that. I mean, that's profound. And that's something, there's a difference between agents who are like you, the agent that worked with you in Hudson, who was relational, who cared about building trust and all of that. And then agents who are, or people who are just transactional, who are thinking, how much money am I making? What can I get? When you're thinking like that, that's just a hollow way to go, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to. And so in our business is, it's competitive. It's a challenge, as you can imagine. But people like that, that's why you talk about this agent that you worked with, because it was a standout, someone exceptional, was doing something different. Well, Seth, how would you, you have a lot of experience. You talk to a lot of people. For agents, how do you encourage them to get better so that they feel comfortable? For example, speaking in public, in front of the camera, all of those things, which, a lot of people are really fearful. They have to create videos for social media and all that. How do you get better at that stuff?
I think what I'm going to recommend instead is if there's parts of this job that give you a stomach ache, don't do them because you're competing against people who love to do it. Instead, you're going to have to overcompensate at something else. So let's say you can't stand the whole nonsense of going on Instagram or whatever, talking, putting on a show every day, right?
Yeah.
So where's the best written real estate newsletter of all time? And why aren't you publishing it? Why don't you have 500, 5,000 people who get an email from you every 3 days where you tell the truth, the salty, unvarnished truth of the listings that you're seeing, plus and minus, right? That we want to read what you have to say. And you don't have to ever appear on camera. You could wear a mask when you go to work. We don't care because you've shown somewhere else what you do. That the idea that you have to call the group of people you work with your team and have your little picture on your business card and be on this social media channel and this social media channel. Who invented that? Who said that was the right answer? There are more than 2 million of you. Pick a different answer. So in my case, I don't use Twitter. I don't use Facebook. I don't use LinkedIn. I don't use Instagram. I said, I write a blog, 9,000 posts in a row. If you want to hear from me, that's where I am. You can't find me over here and you can't find me over there. Because if I was going to be a wandering generality, I'd be average like everybody else. Instead, I do this one thing. And if you want this one thing, here it is.
Your blog is incredible, too. You have so much content and you keep it up to date. There was something on your blog where you had, and I actually wrote some of it down because I said our agents need to look at this. You posted 8 marketing maxims and you gave them, and so many of them are so good. Choose your customers, choose your future.
I love
They're
that one.
brilliant. There's so much of this. It's a lot of it is commonsensical, but I think it's great. Some of this customer service is free. Hello, like these.
All right, so let's talk about those two things. The first one, choose your customers, choose your future. What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is, let's say you're in the Hamptons, right? If the customer you pick are self-absorbed, narcissistic billionaires, then be prepared to deal with that kind of person. Be really good at dealing with that kind of person. Or let's say that you want to work in a working class neighborhood where the people don't have time to come at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on a Tuesday to look at something. All right, well, be prepared to do showings at 11 o'clock at night because that's what different customers have different personalities. If you say, my only criteria is you have enough money to pay for the house, You haven't picked your customers. You don't stand for something. And customer service is free. What do I mean? What I mean is this. Tony Hsieh, rest in peace, he was quite a character. He started Zappos. Zappos is a shoe store. Yeah. It was a shoe store that he sold for $1 billion. So what is it that this shoe store had that made it worth $1 billion? What it had was people would go out of their way to buy a commodity from them because they trusted them. Why did they trust them? Because instead of saying what every other company said, which is to its employees, get off the phone as soon as you can so you can help the next person, he said, stay on the phone as long as you can. The record, last time I checked, was 8.5 hours for one customer service call. Now, obviously, you don't need to spend 8.5 hours on the phone to do customer service on a thing. But what Tony figured out is that the single cheapest way to build a loyal customer base was to always help a customer in that moment when they needed your help. If someone was going to bother calling Zappos on the phone, they were going to figure out how to deal with them. So I'll give you an aside. They get a call at Zappos from a young woman. She's in her 30s, and she's very upset. She's choked up. And she said, I'm calling because my mom died the other day, and I'm cleaning out her house. She was 75 years old. And I found in a closet 20 unopened Zappos boxes that my mom had found solace in buying shoes from Zappos. She never opened them. And I just got to say, I know that we're past the return date, but I just feel terrible because I've got all these valuable shoes. And the person on the phone helped her feel seen, gave her a shipping label so she could put all 20 boxes in one giant box and ship it all back for a full refund. But the punchline of the story is that 2 days later, the doorbell rang, and it was a flower delivery service with a bouquet of condolences from Zappos. And I get choked up every time I tell that story.
That's gives me...
Yeah. So what did that cost Zappos is the question. Obviously, it cost Zappos nothing. Because if you create a culture like that, customers are going to come back and buy a lot of shoes, and they're going to talk about it.
Wow.
So, I think about the last time we engaged in buying a piece of real estate, and we said to the buyer's broker, please, we want to pay enough to buy this thing. Oh yeah, we got this covered. We know the guy, blah, blah, blah. And we didn't get it. And we never heard from them again. Never got a handwritten note, never got a call 3 months later, nothing. Just gone because we were a transaction to them. And so I don't need to talk about them, and they don't care about me.
That's such a strong point in that the Zappos, the shoes, like that is going above and beyond. I mean, most people just, companies, they just are never, and like to do something like that, like you'll never forget that. And to like, you're feeling someone's pain in that moment. And when people are identifying with that, it's, it's like you become a loyal, trusted, it's like, I'm with you no matter what. And so I love that story. I love that. As we all lived through the pandemic and the lockdown and, New York City, agents couldn't show in the city for 3 months. And for us, we have offices all throughout the city, but, we have them in other states too. People stopped coming into the office, Seth, and to me, like office culture, coming in, having a cookie or, talking to people, hugging them. Oh, your daughter just had a baby. I just was with someone whose daughter had a baby, seeing them. How are you? And all that. So we're trying to build that back up and get people to come in and see each other more. Talk to me about the importance in your mind of human connection.
Okay. So human connection is something I spend an enormous amount of my day on. And yet, I haven't gotten on an airplane for work in 2.5 years. And I'm talking to you remotely because I think what we are finding is that everybody feels just a little bit lonely. Some feel a lot lonely. And we invented the telephone, and we invented the letter, and we invented email, and we invented social media. And it made people more lonely because it gave us a chance to differentiate ourselves, push ourselves away, disconnect from other people. And one thing that was consistent with it was the office. The office was a place we would swap germs and handshakes and hugs, but it's not clear that led to actual human connection. Actual human connection is dignity. It's being seen. It's being missed if you are gone. And, the Carbon Almanac, a group I organized, we published a groundbreaking award-winning book. And there were 300 of us now, 1,900 of us in 90 countries. We have never met in person. And these are some of my closest friends. That Purple Dot Space, the community I run online, we just had a meeting this morning online. We're talking about hundreds or thousands of people who feel a real connection with each other. So what we have to do as leaders is create the conditions for honest connection and energy exchange. But whether or not that involves a commercial piece of real estate in New York City, cookies or no cookies, I don't think that's relevant. I think what's relevant is, am I being seen, and would I be missed if I'm gone?
So the actual in-person piece of it to you feel like, you can connect with people as we're connecting right now without actually being in the same room together, but we can build connection, have a meaningful conversation too. And you're saying that's possible.
I'm saying not only is it possible, but it's a skill and it requires effort. But if you and I met at a cocktail party, I guarantee you the banality of our conversation would make my eyes bleed. I would learn nothing from you and you would learn nothing from me. I hate cocktail parties.
I do too.
But a conversation like this, I'll remember it for a long time because I am trying and you are trying.
Wow, it's a good point. We're still trying to get people to come into the office, but because we have meetings and we talk and we share, but I see connection, you can build it in different ways. And we're seeing that. We're doing that right now. Let's talk a little bit about the role of AI. Have you dug it? Can you share with me, how do you think that's going to play into sales and what's going on with real estate? And love your opinion on that.
Okay, so if you visit Seth.blog, there's a little button on the side. There's an AI, the first one ever on a blog. And you can ask me any question you want. It knows everything I've ever written, and it will answer you, not in my voice, but as if it's talking about me. And I use AI for 30 minutes to an hour a day. I do all my own writing because I want to. But the fact is, it's amazing that the typical real estate broker's job has lasted this long, that we have to acknowledge your customers know more than you do. They can look up what they don't know, and that AI knows more than any of us. It knows, particularly in a field like this, where it's so easy to get the relevant data, and It's so easy for more accurate pricing layers to come along. That doesn't mean exceptional performers go away. In fact, they become more valuable. But right now, AI can read a wrist X-ray, a hand X-ray, better than an average radiologist, which means that it can be done instantly and for free. So if you're an average radiologist, you got big troubles. But if you're a world-class radiologist, you've got more business than you know what to do with, because all the times AI gets stumped, it's going to you. And the same thing is going to happen in real estate, that AI is going to do an enormous amount of the preliminary work, and what's going to be left is humanity. What we need is more humanity, because the automation is going to take care of itself.
That's big. So the standouts will continue to stand out, and the mediocrity is going to go away for sure.
Yeah.
So I'm going to pivot to a little bit more fun, because we talked a lot of shop and stuff. Tell me a little, Seth, what do you like to do? What do you do for fun? What are the things that you enjoy?
Well, I do this because I enjoy it. I have enjoyed it since I left Yahoo, and I'm going to keep doing it because teaching is really what I do. Any day that the weather is nice, you'll find me on my handmade canoe on the Hudson River. So if you looked out your window and waved, you could see me on the river. I cook a lot. I have a lot of interest and experience with the jazz world, and I juggle every single day. And I just got a new puppy, so there's a lot of training to be done.
What kind of puppy did you get?
Murray is mostly a hound, a red bone hound that is from the shelter. Every dog I've ever gotten is from the shelter. He's super kind, and he's still a puppy, so there's a lot of energy there.
It's a lot of energy, but dogs so change your life in the better way. They're so like that unconditional love is just fantastic. So you're full time. You live full time. You're in the Hudson? You're in Hastings full time?
Yeah, 13 miles from New York City.
13.
And I spend 2 or 3 weeks every year in Canada teaching canoeing north of Toronto. But that's my world. It's not a very big circle anymore.
Sounds like you have a great life.
Trying.
You sound like you do a lot of fun things. Enjoy it. You have a puppy now. Life is very good. Life is rich. Well, I wanted to just say thank you for, sharing with us. I would encourage everybody to read Seth's blog. There's so much information, the marketing maxims. There's just so much good stuff. I took so many notes about it, but I just think for agents, you're a marketing strategist. You're a really smart guy. And I think your information that you're just sharing with people freely can help them in their business. So I would encourage people to look up Seth's blog, listen to his podcast. And for me, I'm very honored and appreciate that you shared this half hour with me today, Seth. And
well, Bess, it's really a privilege. I don't do these things so that people will consume my content. I do these things so that people will realize that in this moment of time, they have an enormous amount of privilege and an opportunity. If you have the computer you're using to watch this, you also have the computer to publish, and you have the computer to lead and to connect. I call this making a ruckus, showing up in a way that we would miss you if you were gone. If all of us create that generative connection, then everything gets better. And that's what we need, not more hustle, but more connection.
More connection. Amen to that. Bravo. Well, Seth, I hope I see you. I would love to see you, meet you. Even if I don't see you at that cocktail party, we'll connect again this way. But have fun with Murray. Enjoy him. And nothing like a puppy. I love, except for the crying and the teething and all that stuff. So
we'll get there. Thank you, Bess.
Thanks so much. Bye,
care.
Seth. Take care. Happy holidays.